it's the sheer scale of it, actually, Rafe, isn't it? I mean, it's like the rape of your daughters. I mean, it is like something biblical, isn't it?
Well, it's the greatest scandal of the 21st century. I mean, it's linked obviously to mass immigration, which is the biggest tragedy of the 21st century. This is the biggest scandal of the 21st century. And it's not just an issue of the past. And too much of the coverage is treating this as a review into a past incident, past scandal, like the postmasters. That was something that happened. No, this is carrying on today. And the media don't address this issue. The politicians don't address the issue. It continues everywhere. And it's not just Rochdale. And yet, if you were to read the media, this would seem to be an isolated case. Oldham, Rochdale. This is going everywhere. Even in sort of peaceful, leafy Oxfordshire, this stuff is happening on a daily basis. And the fact that our media still, you get these momentary blips where it gets coverage and the politicians get animated, and then suddenly it disappears again. But this is still festering below the surface. There's nothing new in this report at all. No one should be surprised by any of this. The details are shocking. And you say the police kept a frozen fetus. We had a girl kept in a cage. We had a man who injected one of these women with heroin and she died from that heroin overdose. I mean, absolutely appalling. And we shouldn't be afraid to talk about these things because this is the reality that's happening and people need to be awake and alert to what's going on. And, you know, everything Amy said is absolutely spot on and there's not much I can add to it because this is, you know, racism is alive and thriving on our streets. You know, Pakistani, Afghan, Bangladeshi rape gangs are perpetrating this. Our police are perpetrating this by refusing to investigate. Our social services are perpetuating racism by turning a blind eye to all of this. And our media and politicians are perpetrating racism by trying to cover it up, essentially. And the greatest tragedy of all, not tragedy, but the biggest scandal, I think, is that not a single person in authority has been held to account over all of this. No one from the police, no one from social services, or from Rochdale Council and Oldham Council, etc., have been charged. They should be losing their jobs, losing their pensions, and they should be in prison for this. Because as you know, as Amy said, just imagine if it was the other way around. There would be riots and mob violence on the streets. There would be a well-resourced police task force, and you would have, you know, the media and politicians screeching from the rooftops over this. But I should say, actually, we do know from the reports that the police turned a blind eye because these were council estate girls. I mean, they even said that, and social services said, "Well, what can we do about it? These are just girls that are going to get up to this. Or that's the type of girl that they are." So that's exactly what was happening through all of this. So yes, we do need to, you know, in terms of stopping what's going on today. If no one in authority is being disciplined for any of this, this will continue. Only if you have the most severe penalties for those people who have been found to be negligent or complicit in their attitude towards us over the past few years, only that will actually ensure that those people in power today will actually take a proper action on these sorts of things. And, you know, personally, I'd like to see hard labour for, you know, for these characters, you know, even judicial caning, you know. If they want to bring in foreign practices into our country, maybe it's time we adopted foreign practices in terms of discipline.
I think I'd like to see hard labour for those people who jump onto Twitter and say, actually, vast majority of child abuse is carried out by white people. You get that now, you know. It might actually, you know, statistically be true, but what kind of mindset would it be that actually would sort of make that kind of remark?
But that's the first fault that you go to when you're hearing about thousands of girls being raped, that, you know, you're trying to suddenly defend, you know, these men. It's incredible. Yeah.
Actually, and they're silly, obviously, because the white population is so much larger, right?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's not statistically. It doesn't make sense. Of course, white men commit more crimes, but there's far more of them. But this particular subsection of men commit far more crimes than white people.
And there's a deep. You know, I once looked into issues of sexual and antisocial behaviours in London police reports, and what we found out was that, you know, for example, black men were more likely to commit robberies and drug offences. White people were more likely to commit antisocial behaviour, drunkenness, and arson. Chinese and Japanese was more likely to commit white collar crime.
Yeah.
But within the South Asian community particularly, there's a problem with sexual offences. It's repression. You see it from these terrible rapes that happen, not just in Pakistan, but also in India, where girls terribly, you know, murdered on buses in the most horrific ways. I mean, there's a deep problem here with sexual relations and South Asians that people aren't actually brave enough to talk about. So there is a real problem with this demographic, particularly with the Muslim community.